Welcome to the 8A channel, your guide to the tools, tactics, and insights which drive real growth in the 8A program. We focus on how smart firms use the 8A program to accelerate their growth. Our purpose today is to review 20 screening questions that will help you determine if you're eligible to apply to the 8A program. Now, these are informal questions, that they're not official from the SBA, or these are questions that I, as a consultant over the last 20 years, have developed from talking to more than 200 8A firms. The intent of these questions is to prevent any lost time or money. Over the years, I've seen 8A companies or 8A applicants spend thousands of dollars with consultants to apply for the program when they weren't even eligible in the first place. And then also just to waste a lot of time going back and forth to the SBA when they could have clarified issues up front. Also consider this is that there's a lot of gray area in these questions, so the answers are not always absolute. The SBA does look at, they do evaluate on a case-by-case basis. And I would say that if you have additional situations, always we consider adding additional screening questions. And if you do have any overall questions in general, please feel free to drop us a line. The purpose of these 8A screening questions are, first of all, is to flag any potential barriers that will prevent you from getting in the program. Again, as we discussed before, to save money on consultants and legal fees. Typically, to hire a consultant might cost you between, or an attorney, probably from $5,000 to $10,000. I actually knew a gentleman that spent over $30,000 to get 8A certified. The other thing is these questions can help you prevent any false starts. If there's a problem up front, you can identify it before you submit your application, so you don't have to go back and forth the SBA. Those delays can take time. And also, these questions will help give you a plan of action, so once you're in the program, because you only have 9 years, you can identify any particular issues that would help you with your 8A business plan. The first question for the 8A is your annual income. The SBA has determined that your annual income cannot exceed $400,000, and that's an adjusted gross income. And again, that is determined by your personal financial statements and also through things like IRS documents. The second question involves U.S. citizenship. To be in the 8A program, you actually have to be a U.S. citizen, either born in the United States or naturalized citizen. And the SBA verifies this either through having a U.S. passport or through a birth certificate. For question 3, the SBA wants to know that you are not late paying your federal taxes. If you are late, that's okay as long as you have a payment plan. The SBA will also normally want to see a copy of the payment plan and also say the last 3 checks where you've been paying against the plan. Question 4 is, do you have another job besides working in the firm you're applying with 8A application for? The SBA normally requires you to work 40 hours a week, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 in your business. Now, if you do have a job in the evening or on the weekend, that's okay, but the SBA will probably want to see all the other documentation that pertains to that second business or job. They're going to want to see your time card or things like that. So their basic concern is that you spend the full working week with your 8A and not some other job. Question 5, does anyone in the firm applying for 8A receive more compensation than the owner? The SBA typically requires the owner of the 8A applicant firm to be the highest compensated person in the company. Now, there are exceptions. And understand that it varies. Now, I've seen this happen, especially during when the recession happened, the Great Recession, when construction company owners, for example, took took a draw instead of a salary so they can meet payroll, but that was a temporary thing. But again, there is flexibility in this, but in general, the owner has to be the highest compensated person. Question 6, is your firm a large business? This is determined by your NAICS code, which is the North American Industrial Classification System code. Each 8A applicant must be a small business under its NAICS codes. You can look those codes up in the on SBA.gov. They have the codes, and again, you have to be under the threshold for those. Keep in mind that the SBA changes those thresholds every few years, so you just want to review those to make sure they're current. Question 7, does your company have a negative net worth or cash flow problems? The SBA requires that each applicant, 8A applicant, be financially stable. They use your financial statements, which is your profit and loss and your balance sheets, to determine what they call the potential for success. Keep in mind that the 8A is a business development program, so they're looking at your ability, that if SBA provides you with like no bid contracts or mentor or loans or other types of things, that you have the financial capacity and stability to grow with them. So just because, and keep in mind, just because your firm has some shaky finances doesn't necessarily disqualify you. But you have to document the mitigating factors and also maybe discuss your plan to work around them. Question 8, is your firm a nonprofit organization? In general, the nonprofits cannot normally apply for 8A certification. There are some exceptions. The SBA, again, they focus on for-profit companies. Question number 9, are your financial statements outdated? Each 8A applicant must submit current financial statements. What you normally want is your balance sheet and your profit and loss. Usually they want 3 years worth of statements just to make sure that, again, that you are financially stable. And they don't necessarily have to be audited, but they should be comprehensive. Question 10. Do you have less than 2 years worth of business tax returns, or have you been a business for less than 2 years? The 8A program is not intended for startups. The SBA normally requires your business to be at a minimum going concern for at least 2 years. However, the SBA will consider waivers on a case-by-case basis. I have processed waivers as a consultant, but I will tell you there are certain exceptions which are beyond the scope of this presentation. But to get a waiver, you normally either have to have a lot of money or resources to sustain your business. You can have credentials in terms of academics or business contacts or special knowledge. So those are the ways you normally get waivers, but again, they can be kind of tricky. Question 11, is your net worth over $850,000? Now keep in mind your net worth does not include 3 things: the value of your primary residence, the home you're living in, number 2, the equity in your business, and 3, your qualified retirement account. Your qualified retirement account, if you're under 59 and a half, they don't count it because it's considered encumbered, but if you're over 59 and a half, they do include it. The SBA will include it. So, and again, for married couples, assets are split on a 50-50 basis. Question 12, do you have experience or education in the business area where you're seeking 8A certification? So the SBA requires each 8A applicant to have a working knowledge of their industry. So that normally means you have management experience, technical knowledge, training, or academic credentials, and that you must demonstrate those credentials. And they normally determine that through your resumes or through your any certifications you might have, like say a plumber's license or an engineering degree or things like that. Question 13. Is there any negative control situation in your company? The SBA looks at your corporate bylaws and other documents to ensure that that there's no provision in them that will prevent you as the 8A applicant, as the business owner, from having full control of the company in terms of signing a contract, hiring somebody. The red flags they typically look for at the SBA are things like what they call a supermajority, where it requires a 4/5, where the owner can be outvoted by a board. Those things usually flag, and the SBA will typically have an issue, and they'll come back to you, and they may not approve it. Question 14. Do you sell products or services that are not purchased by the federal government? Keep in mind that the 8A only makes sense if the federal government is buying what you're selling. Fortunately, the federal government buys almost everything. So, again, the best way for you to do that is to do a little market research and see what particular products. But I think I've never seen, in more than 20 years of working with 8A, I've never seen an applicant where their services or products didn't match the federal government's needs. Question 15. Are you not Black, Hispanic, Asian, or Native American? Under SBA 8A rules, each applicant has to be socially and economically disadvantaged. This traditionally has applied to persons who are African American, Hispanic, Asian American, or Native American. That's under Public Law 507. Now, women are not presumed to be socially disadvantaged under the Code of Federal Regulations. However, if they will be required to submit what's called the individual social disadvantage narrative. And again, keep in mind that there's been a lot of court challenges to this, and I would recommend you check the SBA website for the latest requirements on how to submit those social disadvantage narratives. Question 16. Are you a broker? 8A firms are required to provide a value to the federal government agencies that they service, either providing a service or making products or value-added reseller, things like that. If you're a broker, you basically are just drop shipping or pass-throughing items or services, and these do not qualify. Again, the 8A is a business development program. If you're not actually producing anything, there's really nothing to develop, which is why brokers are not normally allowed in the 8A program. Question 17. Does a non-minority person own 10% or more of your businesses? Now, 8A applicant firms cannot have a non-disadvantaged person, which are the socially economic disadvantaged persons that have more than 10% of their company during the developmental phase, which is the first 4 years of your 9 years in the 8A program. Now, in the transitional phase, which is the last 5 years, that number goes from 10% to 20%. And again, these limits apply to the aggregate ownership by non-disadvantaged persons. If you have any questions, I recommend you contact an attorney or the SBA. Question 18. Do you have assets in a trust? Which means, does the trust own your company? And now this can be tricky because based on my experiences, this doesn't happen that often, but I had an 8A applicant that did have a trust, and the trust owned his company, and the SBA actually made him divest the shares of his company stock into his personal ownership as opposed to the trust, and then he was able to accept an 8A program. Again, this doesn't happen that often, but just keep in mind having a trust could potentially be a red flag and require some changes before you to get in the 8A program. Question 19. Does one single client provide more than 70% of your company's business revenues? In general, the 8A applicants cannot be over the line of one client. If you have, and the number I've seen is a 70% number, and what could happen is the SBA may say that at that level you're affiliated. That means that client has control over your business. So now, if you can show mitigating evidence, the SBA may give you some grace, but just keep in mind that you want to make sure that you don't have one client dominating your business. Question 20. Is the NAICS code on your financial statements the primary one used in your federal supplier profile in the SAM.gov database? Keep in mind that the SBA cross-references your application with all the other different parts. It'll check your application, your NAICS code against what's in your financial statements, against what's in your website, against what is in the capability statement. So just keep in mind that. Also keep in mind too that the fact that some of the NAICS codes are easy to do, like construction is normally 236220, but other ones like cybersecurity or professional consulting, there can be a variety of NAICS codes. So if the codes match, great. If they don't, try to have them corrected before you submit your application. And if you can't, submit a note in your 8A application explaining the difference. In summary, we've looked at 20 screening questions on the 8A program. Now, and the questions are designed just to see if you meet the basics to apply. Now, keep in mind too, there's a lot of gray areas, so these questions cover probably 95% of the issues. Now, there may be some gray areas, but again, they don't cover everything. The purpose of these questions is to see if it makes sense for you to apply, and then if there's any issues, you can address them before you submit it or before you invest a lot of money in hiring an attorney or a consultant. If you like this video, request you please click the like button. If you want to leave a comment, that's fine. We're glad to talk to you. If you want to send us a question or contact us at the email or our phone number, we can give you a free 10-minute consultation about any 8A questions you have. Thank you for listening, and I hope good luck with your 8A application.